On today's episode of Finding Strength Podcast, we had our good friend Maui on here with us today.
So good, you guys. I can't wait for you to hear us. This is our longest episode to date.
It is.
For a good reason.
Yep. So please be patient. Make sure you have some tissues.
Yes, definitely.
And hey, maybe even a notepad, because we talked about a lot today and a lot of ways to help you find meaning in your journey. And Maui's story is very captivating. It's a learner. Like, you learn a lot about grief and love.
Yeah, the relationship
and how
between the two.
They are hand in hand.
And a lot about like finding meaning in grief and how they're related and that you can get hope out of it. I mean, there's so much depth to this.
Yeah.
We get to hear the story of Maui's son Kyruss and their relationship and the beauty of the relationship and how Maui actually found his son murdered. And this is a very sensitive episode. You're probably not going to want the kids here for this one because he does talk about how he found him and the graphic nature of finding him and the details, which are very important to Kyruss' story as well as Maui's. So kind of brace yourself for that. But I think the biggest, what would you say like the big hits are from this episode?
What I loved that Maui helped me realize is how we can learn from our kids. Like, if we could just take a step back instead of being the ones to be teaching them all the time, just kind of observe them and learn from them. Because really, like I think about it, like our kids really do teach us so much.
Yeah.
And another one, I feel like, everyone's journey is different and the way that everybody heals is different. And we learned a lot of different types of healing today and some that probably aren't the most popular, but like plant-based. We talked about ketamine, how that can help people. And I think that's such a huge one that we've talked about ketamine before on our podcast.
Yeah. Opening the ketamine clinic soon. Get ready, people.
Yeah.
We'll hear more about that.
Yeah. And like plant-based medicine and just also really allowing yourself to feel your suffering and your pain and realize that's just part of the journey now is feeling that. And that's okay. Yeah. And allowing yourself to have your days of going through it and crying and kind of almost like a routine of pain.
The process of grief, how there's there's a routine to it, a structure to it.
I feel like you come up with a structure that works for you and
you find it works and you keep doing it.
And you keep doing it. You don't suppress it. You don't shove it down and that's okay to feel these things. But it was a really great, deep, meaningful episode.
It was incredible. We're really excited for you guys to hear it. Maui will definitely be back on as a guest. So enjoy Maui. Yep. Finding Strength Podcast is sponsored by Avantacool.
Avantacool.
Yeah. Cold plunges. Who's surprised? We got a cold plunge sponsor. Yeah. I met Jeff Rempfer at a first responder conference not too long ago. He and his brother Dave are the owners, and Jeff's a first responder guy. They are killing it. They're this amazing cold plunges. We just got one put in at our house. How do you like it?
I love it, actually. I mean, it's
game changer, huh?
It is a game changer, especially from coming from a horse trough?
Horse trough.
That's what we've been using.
It worked.
It did. It worked. It was great. I love it.
But it doesn't have a UV filter, freaking regular filter. This thing has a hot tub filter.
Yeah, it goes hot and cold. It's amazing.
It goes to 104 degrees and then all the way down to
45 degrees.
30s. Into the high 30s is what they'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy good stuff. We love it.
You don't need to go that low to get the benefits.
Yeah, low 40s is actually really what you need.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. 45 degrees, 3 minutes, and then get me out.
And then get you out. Yeah, we love it. But the main things that our sponsor wants us to highlight is that it's got an all aluminum frame. It's light, easy to move around. We put it up on our deck. You're able to get it up the stairs and stuff like that.
Installing it was the easiest thing. Like that was the easiest part, was installing it. I was surprised. We took it up a flight of stairs onto our deck, and it was not that hard.
Yeah.
I was surprised how light it was.
Right.
And then even like filling it up, how was that for you?
Super easy.
Yeah.
Really easy to use. I absolutely love this thing. It's got this huge pump in it, so it gets cold really quick and it can heat up really quick as well. And the best part, most hot tubs use like a 220 cables. You have to direct line in.
Oh, yeah.
This thing uses 110. You just plug it into your regular friggin' outlet,
Yep.
and you're ready to go. Another amazing benefit, if you use the code STRENGTH24, you will get 25% off.
25% off.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Amazing. They're hooking us up. They really love the cause. We love them. We couldn't be more grateful to these guys for sponsoring the show. So if you need a cold plunge, Avantikul, that is AVANTIKUL.com.
Avantikul.
It's the Find Strength Podcast. We're back in the studio for your viewing pleasure. Before we start anything, I wanted to make sure that we let our listeners know that we are now on YouTube.
Good job.
You can watch whole episodes. We have this gorgeous guest. It's just a specimen of a human. Look at this beautiful,
I know, you're so
amazing
handsome.
man. He is a handsome man. You can watch the whole thing.
Yep.
Ladies,
on YouTube.
feel free to check out this episode on YouTube.
And the way you find us is type in @Finding Strength Method and we'll pop up because, we're not super popular right now. So you got to kind of find us.
Yeah, we had like 8 views. No, wait.
No, we have way more than 8 views. We have like now 8 followers.
Oh.
Thank you. We need more followers.
On YouTube.
Hey, we just started like what,
Yeah, thanks,
2-3 weeks ago? Like that's pretty good. But we have like over 83 views.
Yeah.
That's what we have.
Yep. And we're going to push those out into a bunch of apps for first responders and things like that too. So that should be good. And like lots of growth. We're trying to make things grow here. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Last week we had Clint Markland on. He's a sergeant. What's his like full title?
Sergeant Major Clint
Sergeant
Markland.
Major
Yeah, Army.
Clint Markland. It was a really good episode. We talked about putting yourself into suffering and being like prepared for when life comes at you and you are put into actual like suffering and distress. It reminded me of the eustress that we like put ourselves in. And he talks about his journaling and his family life, his values. It's a really good episode.
Of good information,
Yeah.
great like life tips, like
Yeah.
success tips. I call them life hacks. I thought it was really good. And dude, Clint doesn't mess around, dude. That guy.
No, he doesn't.
That guy knows what he's doing. To become Sergeant Major, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? I think he said E9. Is that right? I can't remember. Do you remember? Yeah, it was E9.
It was E9, yeah.
That's up there.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Cool.
be sure to check that one out.
Yep.
Today's episode, however, man, we got one of our best friends in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
One of my favorite humans for sure.
Yeah. Maui, Ben Maui Jimenez. What?
Yeah, what is your title?
What? Actually, do your full name.
Oh,
bro.
yeah, it's so
do the whole
pretty.
thing.
Well, I mean, legally, my first name is Benjamin, but I've been going by Maui it's been over 20 years now. So just Maui Makani Ikaika Jimenez.
So good. I can't even repeat it. It's so pretty though.
I won't try and butcher it. I won't. No, I won't.
So we've known Maui for how many years now?
I've known you for a long time.
Yes, which is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we passed our paths when I was like 17, 18. You worked at Walmart in Orem. And then our cross paths again when we started doing the Brighten a Day stuff with our friends Kevin and Bethany Tenney. And then you came through the Brighten a Day Foundation from Drew. Was it Drew who recommended you to Bethany and Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay. It was Drew. That's right. And then, so I've known you for a long time now, but since you've come back in our lives, it's been 5 years?
It's been 4.
4
Yeah.
years.
It's been 4 years, 6 months, and 17 days since the incident. So
Wow.
I think it's been for us maybe 4 years.
4 years.
Close to 4 years.
That's pretty awesome.
And in case you're a new listener and you haven't listened to earlier episodes, Bright in a Day Foundation was founded by Kevin and Bethany Tenney after their daughter Bridie passed away about 8 years ago now. Yeah, 8 years ago. Yeah. And Bethany, obviously, if you haven't heard the earlier episodes, she's the first co-host. So we did a lot of work with Bright in a Day in the beginning. They sponsored the podcast for many episodes. And then, I guess Drew reached out to Kevin. Mm-hmm. And then Kevin called me and was like, hey, man, have you heard this story? It's kind of been on the news and yada, yada, all this stuff. And he told me who you were. And then I found out that you that Nick Ozuna and Jess, who's been on the episode, on the show before as well. Nick Ozuna is your... What's the relationship
he's
to
my son's
you?
Uncle.
Son's uncle. Is the best way to say it.
So my ex's.
And then Jess Ozuna, her brother, was like one of my best friends on the planet when I was working at Telos. Anyways, so there's all these crazy connections.
And we've back together.
And I will never forget the first day I ever talked to you. I called you on the phone. I was like, hey, man, how you doing? You're like, I'm okay. And I was like, all right, dude, you don't need to bullshit me. Tell me the truth. And you're like, I am not okay. And we started working together a little bit, kind of like on a therapeutic level, but it was like a friend thing more than even therapeutic. But we did some sessions together and just tried to work through the aftermath of losing Kyruss. And it's been, I can only imagine how that journey is going today, but I know in the beginning it was much different than it is today. And you've done a lot of work, and that's what we're going to get into in this episode is like, how do you experience extreme grief and carry that with you and find meaning in it? And I don't know a better person to teach us that. Yeah. And so I'm really, really excited to have you here today, brother. Really excited. We've been trying to do this for a while now, a couple of years at least.
It's lined up perfectly.
Yeah. So do you want to do the getting to?
Yeah.
Let's take it all the way back.
I was going to say, let's go all the way back before we jump into the story, but just give us a little background of where you're from, where were you born, and where are you at in the line of your family, how many siblings do you have and stuff like that.
All right. I was born in Hawaii. All of my family was. I have 3 brothers, 3 sisters. All my family's from Hawaii. My parents, both of my mom and dad, their parents. I want to say we go back 7 or 8 generations. Wow. So Native Hawaiian. We moved to the mainland, to Oregon when I was pretty young. I started school there. Went to school through Oregon. So I lived in Oregon until I was 18 or 19.
Okay.
And then moved to Utah. And I'm the youngest boy of the family, and I have a little sister, so I'm almost a baby. I was the baby for a while.
You're the baby boy. Then, yeah.
My little sister was born 7 years after me and took all my attention from me.
Oh, man.
No resentment there. Just kidding.
I don't even remember getting the attention as the baby.
So for sure wasn't any after she was born. I get that, man. My little sister stole the light. She was too cute.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's no baby girl. You can't compete.
No. After I moved to Utah, I met Rachel, Kyruss's mom, Rachel Ozuna, so Nick's sister. And we fell in love and we decided to have a baby. And becoming a father was the most transformative thing of my life. So I didn't have the best upbringing. My parents got divorced when I was 14, and my mom remarried a guy from Utah. She left Oregon. My dad moved to Washington, worked there for a while, and then he moved back home to Hawaii. And so I was couch surfing with my friends since I was 14, trying to finish school. Not really. There was no real parental guidance there. My friends' parents used to buy us alcohol, and that's when I started drinking and smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and all those types of things, not having a good, solid form of parenting there.
Like a support system or anything. You're kind of on your own, yeah?
Yeah. It was hard. So I got into a lot of bad things and struggled bad. I decided to move back around my mom because I wanted to get back into life. I was not helping anyone, myself or anything, just doing the things that I was doing. So I moved back. I moved to Utah back to be around my mother. Yeah, I had a baby, and that was the.
How old were you when you had Kyruss?
I was 32.
Early 30s.
Early 30s.
Yeah.
And then how long did you know Rachel for? When did you meet her?
So I started working at Walmart in 2001, I believe.
Okay.
And I met her, I believe, within that first year. And then Kyruss was born in 2004.
You're 32, 2004?
Dude, the math is... So
I know,
I'm
I
41
can't.
right now.
I can't do math.
20s. You're in your early 20s when you had him.
Yeah, early... Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
20s.
early
Early
20s, yeah.
20s. So young guy.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we're almost the same age. You're like a year older than me, barely.
Yeah.
But we're both Geminis. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome, world. Which one you going to get?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Sorry, all the people. Dark side. It's pretty gnarly. But anyways, yeah.
No, I apologize for that age thing.
No, it's all good. Because I just know that Kyruss is older than Ez, and I had Ezra when I was 24, and I was like, I think Kyruss. So you're in your early 20s, and you have this kid, and you've had this wild life, and so Kyruss is born in which state?
He was born in Utah.
Utah.
Okay.
Here. So you're back here.
Timpanogos Hospital in Orem.
Yeah, crazy.
So you have Kyruss, and you and Rachel are together. Where are you guys living?
We're living in a really small apartment down in Provo. I was the only one working. She had a son already, Elijah, that I took on.
Yeah.
I wanted to be dad, And so working at Walmart, I didn't make very much money. I don't even remember how much I made back then, but it was enough to have the apartment and struggle through food and whatever government assistance we had at the time. I didn't have a car at the time. I was still getting rides to work. My license was suspended at the time. It was tough.
It was tough, but you showed up because you knew what it was like to not have parents show up. So it sounds like you were like, I want to give these kids something I didn't have.
At that time, I didn't recognize it as that. I just knew that was a man's responsibility.
Okay.
Right? It's
Duty.
to do whatever
I get that.
do, I recognize it as that now, not having the father figure in my life that I could have. He worked all the time as well, so he wasn't around that much. He was only around to discipline us rambunctious kids, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's what dads did, man. A lot of
Play the
times,
hand.
that's the freaking way we grew up. The Gen X, early millennial thing. Like dad worked and worked and worked and worked. And most of us, a lot of people didn't even have mom, right? That's the whole, and we mentioned this before, the latchkey kid generation. That's us. It's these kids that would come home to an empty house.
Yeah.
Latchkey means you're opening the door. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of parented ourselves. It was a good time, man. Drank a lot of hose water. I remember drinking hose water, running around, skinning knees. I didn't know how to bandage my knee up. I was like freaking 7, dude.
Oh, it was a great time.
Yeah, it was good.
I remember my childhood it was just fun.
Yeah.
Those friendships you build back then, and even though you were struggling, we had nothing. We were poor. But you never really... You didn't think about that as a kid.
No.
You
didn't know any different.
No, you didn't know any different. Yeah.
You started finding that out slowly. Why are my clothes dirty? Why am I wearing my brother's clothes all the time? Why is everybody else showing up with these brand new clothes or nice things in their house or the things to eat, right? We were eating church food. We were raised LDS. So we had the what is it
Bishop
called?
Storehouse.
Bishop Storehouse stuff.
Yeah.
Deseret food. We had that stuff, and I would go over to my friend's house and see like Totino's pizzas and stuff, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's rich.
Yeah.
I was like, that is rich right there. He always wanted that, right?
Yeah.
You started
Oh, yeah.
noticing these weird things, like why don't we have that? But I never, like my parents, I knew we were loved. I don't ever remember hearing it a lot. But I had that sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never questioned if my parents loved me. My dad was pretty rough on us, but that's just how I thought that's how it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I'm sure that's how he thought he was supposed to raise you,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely,
especially
for
the way
sure.
that he was raised.
Thinking back, I mean, there's no way I could have done the things that he did, raising us, working nonstop. Mom's not allowed to work, right? LDS. She's got to be home for the
Stay at
kids.
home, yep.
Thank God. Like, I mean,
Right? Seriously.
they're menaces. But now that I'm an adult through all my experiences, I admire him so much more. I would have lost my mind.
Especially with that many kids.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that's
Yeah.
so many. I'm like 4. Whew.
Yeah, they didn't have time
People
for
have more than that.
There's no time for like a sit down conversation and for
Yeah,
discipline.
no.
It was I got to get back to freaking doing my thing.
Yeah.
You sit down and shut up. Whack whack whack. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And then we've just learned. But what that taught all of this generation, and this is why I'm such a busy therapist, is because I work with men our age all the time. Is the conditioned response to that is emotional suppression, and you have all these emotions. And that's what you're trying to express as a little kid. I mean, when a kid's running around at night, like one of my favorite examples of this is like when kids go to sleep at night. Most kids, before they go to sleep at night, they get wound up. All this energy, right? And it's really hard to like calm them down. What's happening? Well, there's a lot of anxiety around bedtime, right? Because I'm with dad all day long, I'm with mom all day long, and we're hanging out and everything's safe. And now I have to go into this dark room by myself to try and fall asleep. That's an anxiety provoking situation. So the body's ramping itself up, even though it knows it needs to descend into sleep. And so what kids will learn to do is they'll learn to just push that down, that emotionality, that nervousness, because of a fear of a parent or of a reaction from a sibling or something like that, because they know it's not safe. That is emotional suppression, a very normal, natural emotional response to a situation like going to sleep. But I can't get ramped up and wild because dad might lose his shit or mom might lose her shit, whatever. And so I cram it down in. And I keep cramming and I keep cramming and I keep cramming this emotional suppressive thing. And that has myriad health effects, all sorts of effects on the brain, on gut health, you know, all these things. And what we're learning now about emotional suppression is that the cure for it is really to learn emotional awareness. They call it emotional intelligence, to be able to express your emotions and things like that. And that's not an easy thing to learn to do in your 40s, especially when you've been through gnarly stuff and the only way you've ever dealt with your emotions is to suppress them. So you have these huge, giant things happen to you, traumas, and your conditioned learned response is to shove it all down. So really what trauma work becomes, and this is like why we're so freaking tight, because we can be very honest with how we feel with each other. Like, I don't know if there's a man on the planet who I feel safer expressing my feelings to besides you, man. I really do.
Thank you, man.
And that's because I know that you're a safe, good person, and you have this very keen emotional awareness when it comes to being expressive with how you feel. And that's something obviously that's still developing for all of us, but I admire that a lot about you, and I've always appreciated that about you, because I know, man, you've been through freaking the hell, you know, there's no word to describe what the hell you went through.
Yeah.
And to be able to continue living, let alone like make something beautiful of your life, is just so remarkable.
Well, and to like share that energy with other men, because I've seen you in a room with other men and how safe they feel with you, and they're comfortable enough to show their emotions. Like, I remember, like Matt even being able to like shed a few tears in front of you and Kevin and being like, oh, finally, like there's men in my life that I can actually show emotions, and it doesn't mean I'm weak.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's so important.
Yes.
Especially men our age.
Yes.
The way we were raised, we don't know any better. We're supposed to be strong. We're always supposed to be strong.
Pull up your bootstraps and just keep on going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just work through it.
Yeah.
Walk it off.
Yeah. So after you and Rachel had Kyruss, where did things go after that for you guys?
Our relationship fell apart. I was working overnights and I couldn't be there, you know? After the relationship deteriorated, she moved to Vegas. I didn't know why. I don't even remember why. She decided to move to Vegas. Kyruss was about 2.5 at the time. I didn't want him growing up in Vegas. I've been to Vegas. I don't like Vegas. It's just not.
Yeah. It's not for you.
me to raise
Vegas is
children,
definitely
you know
not
what
for
I
you.
mean? Yeah.
Too many people.
Way too many people.
Yeesh.
And so he stayed with me, and I met my ex-wife, Randy, and she had a boy the same age, Caden. And so we got together. We started dating when the boys were about 2.5 and decided to raise them together. It was awesome. We got married, and we raised the boys until they were probably about 13. Kyruss's mom, Rachel, she would come back in and visit him all the time. Summertime, sometimes he would go and stay with her in Vegas. I knew it was temporary, so I was like, okay.
You're okay with it?
Yeah.
He'll come home.
Oh, yeah. It was hard being away from him, but I know he needed his mom, and I never kept him away from that. I could see how much he loved his mom.
Oh.
Kyruss was love. And I just never wanted to keep his mom away from him. And so whenever she was in town, I made sure it worked out to where he could spend time with her. The parents nowadays that they split and they utilize their children as tools, it makes me irate.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using those kids to get at the other person.
Yeah.
It's freaking awful.
That's sad.
Once you have kids, I mean, your life is forfeit, right? Every decision you make is whatever's going to be best for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
The sacrifices we make as parents are, you just do it. There's not a question about that. You know, whatever it is.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Ideally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his mom met someone in Vegas and they decided to move back to Utah together. Kyruss was turning 13. He was maybe 12.5. She moved back to Spanish Fork.
Okay.
They had a house down there, and Kyruss missed his mom, and he wanted to live with her. And I'm like, well, she's in Utah, that's fine. So he lived with her for a year. He wanted to play football really bad on the same team with his cousin. It was like his best friend, Carter.
That's Nick's kid.
Nick's son.
Yeah. So that's Nick's kid. Yeah.
Yeah, they were two peas in a pod. They played flag football together, and I was like, I don't know how that is. I grew up playing football. Like, Kyruss played tackle football since he was, old enough. You know, little bobbleheads running around the football field. I was so proud, right? He played football, and he loved it, and he was so good at it. Anyways, so he was living with his mom, and Mike was her new boyfriend. Originally, he was from Virginia. His family's from Virginia. Okay. After a school year, time has passed. She asked me how I felt about Kyruss moving out to Virginia with them. And we decided together that he was old enough to kind of make up his mind, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want him to go, but I wasn't trying to coerce him in any way.
Yeah. You wanted him to have the full decision of whether staying or going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to support him, and I wanted to do whatever I could, and happily he decided to stay in Utah. All his friends are here.
Yeah.
You know,
Makes sense.
He's made a life for himself, and so he wanted to stay here. And all of a sudden one day she called me and told me that plane tickets were purchased, everything's packed, and they're leaving to Virginia the next day. And, you know, initially I was really upset with her and got into an argument. But she's already made up her mind, and she gave me one more chance to meet up with him to say goodbye. And we met at a Baskin Robbins to have ice cream, and I was trying to do the best I could and be a supportive father and show him that me and his mom could work it out and support him in whatever.
Because it's about him, it's not about you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Well,
your MO, dude.
Well, and you want to show up as like, I'm here, I'm supporting you as a dad, right? Like to feel that as a child, you wanted to feel that as a child. So you knew how important that was for Kyruss to feel that you had his back with what choice he was
That's
making.
who you are, man.
That is who you are.
You are that guy that shows up that way for your kid at all costs. So it makes sense. You're sitting there in Dairy Queen, choking back tears, wanting to reach across and say, don't go. But what do you do in that situation? You do what you're supposed to do. I'm trying to be a good dad, bud.
Yeah, I grew up in a household where all we heard was my parents arguing, you know what I mean? Yelling, and my dad freak out and break things and break doors. And so I wanted something different for Kyruss.
So you're at Baskin and Robbins.
Yeah, saying my goodbyes. I gave him a necklace, and I told him that I would come visit him as much as I could. At that time, I was a manager at Target. I wasn't making great money, but I wanted to support him, and I wanted to show him that me and his mother were making the best decisions for him. Her reasoning was they have better football programs out there, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to play in the NFL. You know what I mean? Kids' dreams. And I was doing the best I could, and so they left, and I was only able to visit him that first year twice. I flew out twice to go visit him, and it wasn't enough. I couldn't be away from him.
Wasn't enough. How?
It wasn't enough for me. I needed more of him, more time with him.
You felt distant.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Did he feel that too?
Kyruss was really good about being happy with his situation.
He was just good at being content.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
He was all love, like you said.
Yeah. And he did so many things to, you know, protect us from being hurt or whatever. And so I just had a natural affinity for it. So I at the time, Randy and I were divorced. Our relationship deteriorated, and I told her and Caden, Caden's my oldest now, that I needed to be around Kyruss, and I needed to be there and be that father figure for him. I don't know Mike. I don't know Rachel's boyfriend. I don't know how he is. And I need to be there. And so we weren't together anyways, and so she supported it, and I left.
Did Kyruss ever say anything about like not feeling safe or anything? Like, was there any inclination? That wasn't a part of your decision to go out there at all. It was just I want to be closer to him.
Yeah.
You just want to be involved with like his football and and show up to his activities and stuff like that. Yeah, like present. You want to be a present dad.
Yeah, when he was here in Utah, I showed up to every football practice. I showed up to every game. I was the crazy dad running down the sidelines when he was running a touchdown, screaming my head off. Like I loved it. It was some of my most proud moments of being a father. Watching how much he loved the game, you know, and celebrating that with him. He loved it. I started identifying myself through him, and through how good he was made me feel like I was a good dad. And that was my purpose. And so working at Target wasn't giving me the fulfillment that I wanted, but it was okay because it paid the bills, and it allowed me to get the things that he needed or wanted. So it was enough, you know. wasn't thinking about what my dreams were. My dreams were to be a good dad. So that's what it was. And so I transferred Target stores out to Virginia, and I moved to Virginia. I didn't know anybody except for Rachel and Kyruss.
How long were they in Virginia before you moved out there?
That first year, one school year.
Okay. And then you're like, I can't do this another year. I'm going out.
Yeah, I couldn't be away from him for that long.
That's cool.
So I transferred out there and I rented this long-term Airbnb. It was like a studio apartment thing shared with, a bunch of people renting out rooms. It wasn't ideal, but I was there. I could be there for him and stuff. And the week that I moved out there, my father passed away. So I moved, and my father was in Hawaii. And so I moved.
Do the math on that. Yeah. All the way across the country and then all the way back.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I moved from Utah to Virginia, and then that same week, my father passed away. And so I had to fly 6,000 miles out to Hawaii to be there. And at the time, that was the hardest thing that I went through.
I can only imagine.
I loved him. I have always loved him. I always appreciated everything he's done for us, and we were never close. There's times, that I remember we were able to spend some quality time together. It was far and few in between, but I still remember those vividly. And so I had to be there. It was hard. It was hard losing him. And that's when a lot of growth and reflection started being a part of my father, my adult life and being a father. And I started recognizing the things a little more of what more could I do? What are the things that I was missing as a child? It's tough because it takes hard things for you to see, how to change.
Nothing teaches you like the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Especially grief, man. Like
grief is the worst.
Well, I have this therapist friend who says it's all grief. And there's actually books on this, that everything that you will ever experience, all the emotional resonance is around grief. And love and grief are inseparable from one another.
Absolutely.
Because, and even you start to look at like trauma, like the earliest traumas that affect people the most are moments of abandonment. And in order to overcome those moments of abandonment, those moments of loneliness, you have to grieve to get through that. And so it makes sense that as your father passes, it's almost like this, proverbial torch is passed to us as we lose our parents, where we kind of get to start to reflect and go like, okay, now what? Who am I? But not who am I in relation to dad? Who am I in relation to me now that dad is not here? What was I missing? What do I need to give myself? What could I give myself? What am I not even aware of that I need? Yeah. Those are big questions that we start to ask in that grieving process. And the earlier we are exposed to grief, a lot of times, the more wise people will be. Like you think about people who experience grief really, really early on, they're quite wise, or they're pretty shut down emotionally. It's kind of two ends of a spectrum. And that's the, the beauty and the destructive nature of grief. It's kind of both. And so anyways, you lose your dad, go back out there, fly 6,000 miles.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on what you said.
Yeah.
A culmination of our love is grief. It is. It's one and the same. The more you love someone, the more it hurts when you lose them. So
it's almost like they're hand in hand, right? Like grief and love are connected. You
would never grieve someone if you didn't love them.
Exactly.
Yeah, my favorite definition for grief is the presence of absence.
Yeah.
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 Wow. That's a thinker.
Very deep.
Very deep. And so think about how much you love somebody. That huge amount of love, when you're grieving, you're feeling the presence of all that love without them. and trying to figure out how to make sense of that in relation to your world. Not easy.
To grieve deeply is to have loved fully.
Ooh, beautiful.
Love
Is
that
what
one.
it equates to. You know, and I've always worn it as a badge of honor of how much I hurt. Because I know how much I loved him. So, you know, those hard times when it hurts, it's also strengthening. It shows me how strong my love is for him, and so I accept that pain. You know,
Because it teaches you.
You learn things from it.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's why that emotional suppression thing I was talking about earlier is a killer. It's all this stuff that we could be feeling and learning and experiencing and growing with.
Yeah.
And it could be helping us to become bigger and better and more powerful and more of me. But we just shove that shit down.
Yeah.
It's hard. I get it. Because it's so painful. But like, you couldn't have said that any more beautifully, man. Like, wear that pain like a badge of honor.
yeah.
So you go out to the funeral for your dad. You fly back the 6,000 miles to your studio apartment
Yeah,
in
just
Virginia.
live life, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you're reflecting a lot, like as a dad, it seems like
Yeah.
losing your dad and then like, okay, well, how am I as a dad? Like, 'cause can only imagine losing him and then just thinking about you and your dad's relationship and then comparing it to you and Kyruss's relationship. Okay. Like, where am I at with Kyruss? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's how am I showing up?
Okay.
You know, how did he show up? I don't hold anything against my father at all, but I need to be better.
Okay.
You know, and so always thinking about how am I showing up for him, for Kyruss. But 7 months later, after my dad passing, just living life out there, and I tried contacting them. I couldn't get a hold of him, but he has, you know, girls and friends and school, and he has a life, right? He's growing up, and they start kind of moving away from wanting to be with dad and want to hang out.
teenage
Cool
thing, yeah.
teenager. Yeah.
That's cool. I was able to support that and see that it's another sacrifice we make as parents, right? We have to let them go and let them experience things. We can't be so selfish to hold them back
Right.
from
Yeah.
experiencing their own life. Otherwise, there's no development, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was happy for him that he was too busy for dad sometimes, you know. But I knew that when I couldn't get a hold of Kyruss, I could get a hold of his mom. Even though a lot of times, you know, she'd be like, well, he's old enough, he needs to answer his phone. I'm like, he doesn't even charge his phone. He's playing Xbox all day. You know what I mean? Like, just help me out a little bit. But I couldn't contact her either. This was a couple of days before Memorial Day. It was Memorial Day weekend coming up,
What year is this?
2019. And it was probably a couple of days. And I was like, just gonna let him charge his phone or whatever. They're doing something. Maybe they went out of town for the weekend and just didn't tell me or whatever. You know, he's busy.
When you're respecting their space,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I'm
You're
trying,
Yeah.
you
You're
know?
trying. Yeah. When you're like, okay, I really want to talk to my son.
But the night of the 28th, I started feeling sick. I started getting bad thoughts and bad feelings. Like, it's been a while. Usually one of them responds to me, even if it's just a text or whatever. And it was so crazy. It was the first time I recognized that my mind was trying to protect me from fear and from pain and from possibly being hurt, right? And my mind kept telling me, "Oh, it's okay. They're doing something." And I remember that conflict in my head. It was so powerful because my body was telling me that something was wrong, but my mind was trying to protect me, right? And so I wrestled with that for the night, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go over there tonight. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to go over there. It's my day off. It was a Wednesday. And in the morning, I woke up and I was so sick to my stomach, just overcome with just this bad feeling. So I got dressed and I drove out to the house, and all the cars were there. I still couldn't contact anybody by phone. And yeah, and that's when I discovered that my son and his mother and Michael were all murdered. And I found them bound at the ankles and wrists behind their backs with their throats slit. And finding my son that way, it destroyed me. I don't, my body wasn't reacting. Something just felt broken. I couldn't, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he was in his bathroom, face down, and at that moment, I knew something was broke. I couldn't.
Like in your body, something had broken.
Yeah, I
Never the same again.
nothing was
Like
working.
your spirit.
I couldn't like my thoughts were. I just couldn't operate. I called 911 immediately, and yeah, and yeah, I mean, you know, the people that were responsible are you know, they were caught. They're all serving multiple life sentences, but
Which took a long
I was gonna
time.
say they weren't caught right away though, right?
That's a whole.
That's a whole nother.
yeah, it was. I was in a state of. At the moment, I wasn't in fear. I was in terror. There's a big difference between fear and terror, and I've felt fear. I know fear, but this was something else. This was the most horrific thing you could ever try to ever see, ever go through. So terror. It was terror.
Well, the amount of helplessness, like what your entire life, we're trying to figure out how to, protect ourselves, try to keep things going, try to maintain some semblance of, sanity or rationality or make sense of this unmake sensible experience, right? And a part of that is how we define ourselves, who we are.
Yeah.
I am me because of this element of self. And for many men, that is being a father. Mm-hmm. And for you and me, which is why we're like super homies, being a father is the greatest thing about me.
It is.
And when you find your child dead, that is gone. And to make sense of that is impossible. And the only experiential thing in that moment has to be helplessness,
Absolutely.
terror, sheer panic, overload. And that's not something that human beings are designed to overcome rapidly. And as human beings, those moments where we are utterly helpless, where we are overcome by terror, those are the moments that truly define us and change us physiologically forever. And we have to go back and revisit those moments throughout our life until the day that we meet our own end. And creating context and understanding and letting go of self-blame and finding acceptance around that. That's grief. That's the grieving process. And it's not something that human beings can just do. We don't have the capacity to just figure that out ourselves. We need each other. We need other human beings to help us go through that. And that is one of the most difficult things for people to understand, because the pain is so personal and so individualized. And the moment was so lonely and so helpless. So it makes sense, kind of, sort of, that I would have to go through this alone. But it's actually a pairing of opposites, as it always is. Positive, negative, dark, and light. And that dark, 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 lonely moment that we go through, as harrowing and as horrific as yours was, that's has to be contrasted with some light somehow. And if we can figure out how to do that, that's the goal. Yep. But I imagine in that moment, you're not thinking that. And then the days after, it's like, how this is never going to end. This is my new normal. I'm never going to get better. What were the days after like?
Very confusing.
Probably a lot of gaps in that memory there too, right? Just like super chunky, dissociated.
Yeah, it's pretty foggy. Loneliness and helplessness was the biggest things. I didn't know what to do. I wanted everything to stop. I wanted life to pause for me, to collect whatever was left of me, right? But that was a big learning experience, that life doesn't stop for anyone, and it just keeps going. And all of a sudden I had to start planning memorials and funerals, and am I going to cremate my son, or am I going to bury him?
And you found the babies.
And Rachel had 2 babies, that were just left for dead.
And you found them there
you
too,
found
right?
them there too,
they were
right?
there, and they were still alive.
How old were they at the time?
Baby girl was, I want to say she was like 6 weeks old.
Yeah, she was she was a newbie.
She was a newborn. He was a year and a half. He was locked in a room, away from the bodies, thank God. And she was in her swing when I got there.
Go ahead.
How many days did they tell you that they probably
They were in there for 2 days
without anyone.
So very malnourished, infections from dirty diapers, bad,
Yeah.
but they survived. It was a surprise to everyone, and thankfully so. I mean, those kids now are so, Bean is doing the best he can, but they're so happy, and
they got a good mama.
They have a great mom.
A great dad. Yeah.
They deserve the life that they have.
Yeah. It's just mind-boggling how just fucking awful some people are. And this is something that we just don't really understand until you're faced with it. Some people, they're just, as much as everybody wants to put their heads in the sand out there, some people are just friggin' evil. Mm-hmm. And we can, unfortunately, there's a movement in my profession to just excuse everything, right? Well, there's a reason why these people do stuff, and there's a reason, and they went through a bunch of stuff, and they ended up in this situation and all that. But man, at a certain point, we just have to be realistic with ourselves and just be honest that there's some people that just suck. They're awful people, and they hurt, and they destroy, and they take advantage of, and they're out for themselves, and they're not out for us. And when you're met with that, what does that do to you and how you see humanity, the world? Did it create any cynicism? I can only imagine how much anger. Like, I'm curious. What was that like for you?
Like how he saw the world differently after that?
Yeah, I've always known that there was dark out in the world. I used to live that. Obviously not to an extreme extent. And so I've always explained to my boys, Kyruss and Caden, that there are bad people out there, no matter what. I've always explained that to them, but they've never known that. I was able to provide them with safety and security. But I've tried to tell them about that. But afterwards, afterwards, I mean, I doubted all of humanity. I didn't want to accept that these people were, that there was any hope. I didn't.
It was all bad now, all dark.
Yeah.
Like, where do I go from here?
I mean, everything changed. It was honestly, even my colors that I saw, physically saw, were dim. They were drab. Everything was gray. Everything, there wasn't bright colors. There wasn't anything. Everything was different. And it's been a long road, and it's going to continue to be a long road.
Are the colors brighter now than they were then?
Absolutely.
But it doesn't change the fact that the darkness that you experienced then
was overwhelming.
Almost insurmountable, to the point. What did you contemplate taking your own life, or
multiple times?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time doing anything I could do to numb. I was doing cocaine almost every day because I could get my hands on it out there. Drinking every day. I never left the house. I door dashed everything. I didn't want to leave.
When you're living with strangers too, people coming in and out, right? Yeah.
I had to share the kitchen area, but everything else was my own. So I was just numbing as much as I could, and I had no support system out there.
Yeah, you're all alone.
So that's when I decided to move back to Utah.
How long was that, Maui? How long were you out there till you came back?
I can't remember.
Weeks or months?
It was a couple of months.
Couple months.
Kyruss's funeral was where?
It was in Springville.
So it was in Utah.
It was in Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a memorial on Father's Day.
Father's Day.
Wow.
Ouch.
I didn't know that. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was Father's Day. I flew back. I was flying back with Kyruss's remains on my birthday, June 14th. And then on Father's Day, we had the memorial. And so, I don't celebrate my birthday. I don't celebrate holidays. I'm starting to now, but all the times that were supposed to be my happiest were my darkest. They were the hardest days of my year,
The days that are supposed to punctuate the year actually highlight what's missing.
Highlights the grief, right? Highlights the absent.
The presence of absence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So normal, man. Like I've worked with grief for a long time. I got my own shit, right? Like that is exactly my own experience and the experience of hundreds of people. It's just what should be a certain way isn't that way anymore. And so it feels like something is very wrong. Like this is not how it's supposed to. It's supposed to be different. So why is it this way? This is wrong. This is bad. I got to fix this. I got to do something. There's something wrong with me. We're trying to find the mind, right? In its effort to protect. It's constantly coming up with these ideas about like, okay, here's how I fix this or make it better. Let's numb, do a bunch of blow, get drunk, whatever, do all these things to fix it. But in the end, the answer can't of how do I get through this doesn't come from a fix. There's no solve. There's no problem to solve. It's the mind's idea of solving a heart problem. It can't come from up here. It has to come from in here in the heart. And that's something that just takes years and years and years and work and
A lot of work.
and the right environment, right? This is a key element to healing for people. Your environment is very indicative of your growth and of your situation.
Well, and the people you're around,
Totally.
it matters. Yeah,
Totally.
the influence that you have on other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you want to come back to Utah
Yeah.
because this is
You have
kind
your
of more
support
like a
system
home
here.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was lonely out there. It was scary because the guys weren't caught at the time. So I had my gun on me all the time. Doors were always locked. Drapes were closed. Any little thing set me off. I remember coming home one day, and from work, I started operating as this robot. I didn't know what else to do. My LOA time ran out from work, and I didn't know what to do. I was just functioning, right? I don't even remember the days at work or anything, but I came home from work one day and I remember seeing a spot of blood in my home, and I had this panic attack and just a lot of triggers, that I've had to work through over the years. But it was lonely and scary to be out there alone, and I needed something.
And you had no clue who did this. You had no like background, no story, right? And like having that fear set in, like, are they going to come after me next? Like, do they know I'm Kyruss's dad? Like,
Right.
did stories like that come into your head?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I was always nervous. That's why I always had my gun on me, and I mean, I've always been one to lock everything up, but it was
Heightened,
to the extreme.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. We find out years later after these guys were caught that Rachel's new boyfriend was a well-known drug dealer, and his nephew decided that he wanted to take over his empire. And on the streets, it was kind of common knowledge that he would always have anywhere around 100,000 in cash at his home or his location, plus drugs. He was selling cocaine, and so his nephew planned all this out to come down with a bunch of guys and rob him. But apparently, it turned into something way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you went to the trial, right?
I did go to the trial. Yeah.
How long after the murders was the trial? It was a long time.
Yeah,
it was over a year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
2.5.
I can't remember. I'm very bad with times.
That's
now
totally fine.
and
Yeah.
dates,
But it was
over
definitely a
for sure.
year or so
Yeah.
after,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
was
It was a
2
long, I
years
remember
or
it being
so.
a
I think it was over
long-
2 years
yeah.
because it was only a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yes.
too long.
Yeah, it wasn't
they
that
got
long ago. So they were
convicted.
2.5. Because they got caught not super quick, but they were in freaking holding forever.
Yeah. They were
How was that for you, Maui, to sit in that courtroom and see those boys?
It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever chose to do.
Yeah, because you
Was
got
to
to
be
choose
there.
to be there, right? You didn't have to
I was subpoenaed because I
Yeah.
was the first person on the
there,
scene.
yeah.
So I did have to testify that. But there was a point in the trial where they weren't necessarily going to allow me to be in the trial for the rest of it because I was a witness, right? And I've already made a decision to be there. And so I needed to be there for Kyruss and Rachel to show up. And so I was so upset that there could be a chance that I wouldn't be able to to sit in the rest of the trials. It was a week-long trial.
Yeah.
And I was the first person called up. And so I would have been in the very beginning, and then that's
gone.
it. I wouldn't have been allowed in the courtroom, but the defending attorneys approved it, and so I was able to sit through the trials. It was really hard, but it was something that I fought with before going into the trials, how I wanted to show up, right? I didn't know how I was going to react when I finally saw them. But I knew that I needed to be there the best I could, to show up the best way I knew, the best version of myself, whatever that was at the time, for them.
How did you prepare for something like that?
I spent
Like,
a
what did you
lot
do?
of time talking with Kyruss, and just looking at his pictures and telling him how hard this was. And telling him and telling myself that I still wanted to be that dad for him. I didn't want to go in there and attack these guys. I wanted to, but
Part of you did.
Yeah, for sure.
it was me picturing Kyruss and Rachel watching the whole time, and if I don't continue to fight, what kind of father am I? What kind of father will I be? And that's fighting against the want to attack these guys and be strong for Kyruss. And so it took a lot, inner conflict the whole time. I had a picture of him that I had grasped through the entirety of the trials, but I was able to keep my composure, and it was something that I had to do, and I had to overcome for him, for them. I'm not going to be these violent people that took everything from me. Stronger than that. I have to be.
Why?
Because that's who I want to show up as for my kids.
For the world.
For the world.
That's your world. And you bring that with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
That's the only way that we will ever overcome hate and fear-mongering and violence.
Yeah, I grew up violent. I fought all throughout school, all throughout my young adult life until Kyruss was born. And that was something I never wanted to show him, was violence. And I never wanted to be that person ever again. When he was born, that was the end of it.
He taught you a lot.
He taught me so much.
Almost like he still teaches you.
Absolutely every day.
That's beautiful.
One of the best things that we can do as parents is to observe our children and learn everything that we can from them. They are so innocently wise, and it's all things that we forget as being adults, going through the grind of working and paying these bills and things like that. We forget who we are, and we forget that we were pure at one point, and we were innocent at one point, and we need to bring that back as much as possible.
Because what do kids want, man?
They want to be happy.
They want to connect.
They want peace.
They want
love.
peace.
Yeah.
They want to play. They don't want to enjoy. Like put a kid into nature. What does a kid do? He runs around. Look at that rock. Look at this. Right. Like this morning, Ezra's taking pictures of the sky because it's like this beautiful experience that he gets to have for the first time. But because we've seen it 1,000 times, now it's lost its luster. But what can children teach us is that it's never lost anything. It's always been the same. It's our perception that has created this grayscale version of reality.
Yep. Yeah, we should always pay attention to our children and observe them.
Yeah, because they're reflecting back to us, ourselves. They're teaching us about ourselves. They're teaching us what it means to be human and what it means to be alive and what it means to be, fragile.
Yeah.
And weak and strong and emotional.
They can teach us everything we need to know
Yeah.
if we just pay attention.
Yeah.
They teach us way more than what we think we're teaching them.
Definitely.
We teach them knowledge, but they teach us wisdom. But I mean,
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
They are beautiful.
So you move back to Utah. Getting back to the timeline, you move back to Utah. How do you and Drew get hooked up?
So at the time, I started seeing a life coach. She says she's not a therapist, but she's remarkable.
Yeah.
Catherine Dixon.
Yeah.
I was seeing Catherine Dixon, and she connected me with Drew. She is very intuitive, and she can feel her way through life.
She can.
She is amazing.
She is. She's a phenomenal human.
Yeah, you've worked with her,
Yeah, I
huh,
have.
Brittany? Yep.
I have worked with her. Yep.
So Drew and I shared the same life coach, therapist. She's a therapist. And she was like, I don't normally connect like my clients, but you guys, I think you would benefit.
She saw. That's what I will tell.
exactly.
Like, you two are like brothers from another mother.
Yeah,
You guys have always, like, you guys had to meet. She nailed that.
Destined.
Yeah, she
absolutely.
nailed that.
Drew Manning he is like one of my brothers. I think we came into each other's lives when we both needed something, right? My family, my brothers and sisters, the ones that lived here they were distant. And it was okay because I needed solitude. They didn't know how to show up. They've never experienced anything like that. That's okay. I was never upset with them about that. I didn't know how to be around them. So it was a shared experience.
Well, and I'm sure you guys were still grieving Dad, right? That was only 7 months after.
I never got a chance to properly grieve him
I
because
bet not.
of what happened. So yeah, some of my, we were definitely still trying to grieve Dad. Losing Kyruss consumed everything of my life, and I've never got to revisit that. But yeah, I feel like Drew needed a brother figure in his life at that time. He needed somebody to know personally. He was struggling with having intimate relationships on that level of friendship, and I needed the same thing because my brothers, we weren't raised to know anything about therapy and connection and this and that.
Yeah.
Nobody in our generation is, man.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
And I
we're
understand
work in
that.
progress. Yeah. It's good that we're figuring it out now. It's kind of doing better than the previous generation, man. We're figuring something out. It's great.
Yeah, Drew's been amazing. Drew's an incredible guy. He didn't know quite how to help me besides just to be there and show up. We would start going on hikes. Initially, I wanted to get back into shape because I knew that could give me some sort of mental clarity. I was looking for anything
for sure.
at the time.
Kind of like grasping, I'm sure, just at anything, right?
Yeah.
Anything that would put their hand out.
I was at rock bottom. Some people don't realize what true rock bottom is. I was blessed with hitting my absolute rock bottom, and so otherwise I would have never reached out for help from anyone. I'm not
Blessed at hitting your rock bottom.
Yeah.
Wow. That's deep.
It's a terrible thing to be at rock bottom, but I love the version of who I am today more than any other version that I've had throughout this 41 years of being here.
That's beautiful.
I think that's what we should all try to do is love who we are now. And I am definitely the best version of myself today. And I'm grateful for the suffering. I'm not grateful for the experience. I don't wish that on anyone. And I miss my son every day. But it's blessed me with perspective, and allowed me to open up and connect with people on a level that I never knew. I didn't know this world that I live in, you know. But yeah, Drew, my heart was open to anything, and Drew is so empathetic. He's never experienced what I've experienced, but his whole teaching is on empathy, and it was amazing to me to meet someone that did not lose a child, but could show up and be there. I've never had that in my life where I could truly talk to someone and felt like you're being heard, you know, on a non-professional level. And Drew wasn't 100% on how he could help, and so he introduced me to Kevin Tenney, and Brighten and Day, and Kevin and Bethany. I mean, all of the people that I was blessed with meeting after the tragedy are key people in my life, and an absolute key to being able to continue on is finding that environment and those people, building that support group. That's a true support group. Finding those genuine people, and also discarding any relationships that aren't serving you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of relationships that automatically disappeared from my life after that because people didn't know how to be around me. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't think they would have served me in my journey at that time anyways. I've hung on to a few relationships that I've hung on to after that, that I was able to connect with, and it just felt natural. I'm happy. The people that I've met now, the Tinnies, the Quacks, amazing people. You guys are key to me being here today.
I'm glad you're here, man.
Me too.
Thanks, man.
For real. A little hairy there for a minute.
There were sleepless nights we did have.
Oh,
I will
man.
say that after we met you.
Yeah, there's plenty of moments. You know, suicide was a reality for me. I was never in. I don't recall, anyways. When I can clearly remember thinking of having those tendencies, suicidal tendencies, it was clear to me. I felt like I needed to cover all my bases, and it wasn't an emotional, I'm going to do this right now. It was a clear and calculated thing that I knew in my head that that's what I wanted to do, was not be here anymore. I didn't want to suffer anymore. I didn't want to hurt anymore.
Relive that trauma every single day, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think part of it too was, because I've, you know, a big part of my obsession is obviously the mind and its patterns. And in researching suicide as much as I have, there's several different like thinking patterns that seem to show up very frequently with suicide. And the one that is always there with suicidal thinking is hopelessness. Did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that I want to point out for the people listening here, is we don't recognize how infectious hopelessness is and how meaningful hope is, conversely. Because if I have a little bit of hope, hopelessness is gone. However, you pull in the philosophical belief around hopelessness of the East, and it changes things a little bit. Because the idea of hopelessness when it comes to suicidality is that nothing can get better or will get better, that things are at their worst and only going to get worse. That's kind of that hopelessness that exists within suicidal thoughts. Is that kind of what you experienced more or less? However, in like Taoism, Buddhism, even in like Hinduism, they have this idea of embracing hopelessness, which to me at first was very strange. But the concept is that things, not only will they not get better, it's that they can't get better because this is as good as it gets, because there is only this. And so hopelessness is an idea rooted in now or the future. And you get to choose which hopelessness you're going to embrace. Hope is this idea that things will get better and I can just endure to the end. And as long as I'm doing my work and grinding and trying really hard, and I can handle it today. Today's going to suck, but tomorrow will be better. That's no way to live either.
No.
That sucks. Yeah. And that's a variation of hopelessness that isn't the best of hopefulness, I guess. But the thing that is really powerful that I'm working on embracing and that I like to teach and help people to understand is that as we embrace that things are as good as they will ever get now, because now is the only thing that really does exist, I can let go of this idea that it's going to get worse or that it's going to get better, because this is all we have. And so let's make this moment the moment that is the best, because it's the only moment.
Right.
And within suicidal thinking, that becomes a really important concept. The idea that I am not going to make this better by dying. That's not a thing. And so for people who who listen to this podcast, who are struggling with suicidal thoughts, understand that it may seem like a solution to the problem, because that's kind of what it sounded like it felt like for you. Is that accurate, more or less?
Then I wanted to be with my son.
Yeah.
Right. However, when you can accept the reality that, and I don't know where you're at with this, but in my experience, like for my person who died was, my best friend, cousin, Justin. I was 22 years old. Like I've since realized like he's never been gone. It's just a different version of experiencing him. And it sounds like you talk to Kyruss like he's still around.
I do. Yeah.
So help us understand the shift from I want to be with my son to I am with my son.
There's a lot of stages or elements that got me there. It was a constant struggle every day. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be with him. Thinking that he's gone. One example I can think of is going to the trials and preparing for the trials. I showed up to the trials as if he was sitting next to me. It became my reality. Multiple different things, such as dreams. I've had dreams where he's come to me and spoken with me, and I held him, and they were real to me. It was my reality, and I know that he's the closest to me when I'm the best version of myself. I can feel him.
So when you're more aligned and in tune with who you are, you're more open to feeling him with you.
Yes.
This is I think really important, because what I have found is that it's not necessarily that they're far away or close. It's that I'm not in a place where I can feel them.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say receive.
Yeah.
Like you got to be open. Yeah. You got to like get yourself aligned so you can be open and be able to receive whatever is coming your way,
Well, and there are so many different ways to experience this openness, and you can utilize some of these tools that we have now that weren't really very readily accessible or acceptable even years and years and years ago in dealing with grief. And, meditation is a huge, huge part of that, something you can do on your own. But I've talked about this on the podcast before. My very, very first experience ever with ketamine was with you. I went with you was that your first ketamine session?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that helped with this idea that Kyruss is around, or was that part of it? Or
it was one of the first things that gave me hope that
there's that word,
I would be with him at some point. It was a very, very analytical experience.
Right. It's real heady.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was no emotion tied to everything that I experienced in that until the end, when I was being pulled away from him. But when I was there, I was able to identify his and Rachel's energy in this mass of infinite energy. It was so, like I said, I was able to pinpoint their energy. I knew it was them. And I got to be with them.
So they're not gone.
No, they're here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's almost like I love the radio analogy. Have you heard this before? Like there's music in this room right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's radio frequency in this room right now.
Yeah.
We can't hear it, but it's only because we don't have the proper instrument and the proper tuning. So if you can understand that your instrument is your body and your job is to find the proper tuning, to tap into the frequency so that you can feel, hear, experience whatever wavelengths are in this room. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean they don't exist.
Right.
And ketamine is an agent, if you will. You know, plant medicine, psychedelics are an agent that can help you tap into that frequency and experience some very incredible, powerful truths that are not available to us in this present state now, but maybe, right, they could be with practice. And that's why one of my favorite phrases that I've heard is use the medicine to get there once and spend the rest of your life trying to get there again without it.
Right.
And that has definitely been a big thing for me in trying to, you know, experience through meditation and practice and just, you know, with you as we work together to just become more aligned and open to whatever it is that is out there. Because there's so much stuff that we're unaware of.
So much more that we're unaware of. Yeah.
Right? I heard statistic one time, and don't quote me on this, but I heard that what we understand and what we can actually measure is less than 1/1,000,000th of reality.
That's crazy.
I could see that.
Minuscule.
Which I totally agree with that, with the experiences that I have had through medicine, plant medicine, you know, like totally there's way more to this life than just us here right now in this room together that we cannot see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It helps you tap into your subconscious. And
yeah.
That was the first thing. Plant medicine was the first thing that allowed me to see my colors again.
Oh.
The vibrancy of color. After having my, I want to say it was my first experience with plant medicine after losing Kyruss. Yeah, I remember seeing it again. It was the first thing that allowed me to see beauty again. Because it brought me to my higher self. Mm-hmm. You know, it assisted me there. Mm-hmm. But like Matt was saying, it's definitely a tool, you know. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you should rely on and do all the time, you know. I always looked at it as my cup's overflowing. My capacity cup is full all the time. And every now and again I need an emotional reset. And if I can't get there with the tools of meditation and things like that, then I'll use an assist and I'll do a plant medicine journey to kind of empty my cup a little bit, you know, to give me a little bit more capacity. And it's helped. There can always be too much of something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta find that sweet
Balance.
middle
Sweet
zone. You can have too much or too little. Yeah.
There's got to be
Moderation,
balance in
right? Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
So
What are some of the big, I don't know, lessons, takeaways, learnings, observations that if you could put them into like bite-sized packages for people, what are some of the big ones that you feel are indispensable?
knowing that you are not alone in your suffering is key. When I met Kevin and heard some of the stories, it opened my eyes to that. Meeting Kevin, period, learning about his journey with losing Bridie, it really opened my eyes and let me know that I wasn't alone in my suffering, because it was such a dark and lonely place to be. But seeing that pain in Kevin and Bethany helped me realize that I wasn't alone. And you're not alone in all of this. It will seem that way, but there are people out there that you can connect with, you know, like the deepest wounds create the strongest bonds.
What did that do for you when you did hear Kevin's story and hear, like, because I've heard Kevin's story and you feel the emotion and the pain and everything. Was it like familiar? Like, is that like, what is it that you connect on when you're hearing someone else share their suffering for you to make you not feel alone?
It brings back your own grief when you're hearing the story, and you can truly, you can have true empathy for that person because you have full understanding of that pain. And so you are experiencing the hurt with them on the same level. You know, Kevin always told me that he couldn't even imagine experiencing my story compared to his, but it's the same. I told him that I didn't get to say goodbye to my son, but I don't know what it would have been like to be him trying to resuscitate her and over and over again, and then being in the hospital and saying goodbye. How hard would that have been, you know?
Making that decision.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, there's no comparison. We both suffered immensely.
And you have that empathy for each other. That's what's so beautiful.
Well, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we want to find joy. And as much as grief seems like this dark thing, it's the ultimate connector. If grief and love are inseparable, then, well, what's the thing that binds human beings together? Love. And what we can experience is the joy of grieving, which seems oxymoronic, right? It seems like those two things shouldn't mesh, but they really do. Because one of the most beautiful experiences of my later life was grieving with you. And being a witness to that it changed me forever. I'll never be the same because I got to witness such a beautiful expression of love and pain and joy and fear and hope and terror and confusion and courage and all that rounded out with just a bunch of love. And I just remember feeling that and just going like, okay, I have no clue. You don't know what you don't know. I don't even know what I don't know that I don't know yet. There's so much other stuff out there. Okay, Matt, time to open up, dude. Like let all this idea of who you think you are, who you want to be seen as, who you want people to see you as, like, that's gotta go. That ego. And a big part of that ego died that day. And man, there's so much more freedom. And I will forever be grateful to you for teaching me.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. I think the thing that's hardest, man, is that it's just how we were brought together. It's just, there's so much freaking pain, dude. And it's hard. It's so hard to do this life thing. There's so much hurt out there. And I know you carry a lot of that. And I wish I could, free you of it.
You help to ease that suffering every day with so many people. Jordan Peterson probably said it the best when he said it is our moral obligation to help ease the world's suffering. And the career path that you've chosen is so brave to put yourself in that situation with so many people and take on their hurt. And shoot, I'm so blessed to have met you, and there is no healing it. There's no taking it away, but you ease that in my life, and you ease that in so many other people's lives. And that's all we can do is help ease each other's suffering, because that pain does not go away.
Dan Peterson's so wise.
He
dude.
is,
He's
yeah.
got so many one-liner. That's a big one.
That is a
I
big
love
one.
that.
When I feel like through the pain from us, getting to know you and being with you on some of your healing processes and stuff like that, what I feel like I've learned from other people's trauma is that beauty follows it. Love follows it. Because we got to share a really special moment one time in our lives when we were, we did a plant-based medicine journey with you, and I remember just feeling so much love for you. It was just like pouring over, and just like, and I didn't even realize it, but I like lifted myself off the floor, and I just came over you, and I just gave you a big hug, and then everyone else followed, and we just held each other there through this pain, but also this new like sense of love, like a new friendship. Like something was growing in that room in that moment through all the dark and the pain, and it just was like a new doorway like opened, I think, for all of us that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it just brought on like this openness, letting the ego die, and this new openness to this world that is both ugly and scary, and but also beautiful and love. And I think I'll forever be grateful for that day.
Yeah, that was an amazing day.
Oh my gosh, I think that day
everything.
changed everything
Yeah.
for me. The way I view life, the way I view my kids, the way I view myself as a mother, the way I needed to turn off the thought of how people see me and how do I see me. That's what matters, is when I look at myself at the end of the day, did I show up for me? Because if I show up for me, then I'm going to damn well show up for you. I'm going to show up for my kids. I'm going to show up for my family, my friends. And so I just thank you for that day. I thank you for not holding this in, Maui, and sharing this pain and beauty and ugly and the sacrifices you've had to make through your life, and giving that to us and sharing it with us.
You're welcome.
That's very brave.
It was, it helped me by doing that, being able to share and open up. Yeah, I mean, I lost my sense of ego as well. I don't worry about that so much. There's so much more important things to focus on, that there's a lot that I just cannot put my energy towards anymore. Yeah, that was an amazing day.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was one of my strongest memories, that I remember connecting. The human connection that day was insane.
And how deep it can go.
Because we just want, we humans want to be seen, right? Like, even like you look at the needs of children and attachment theory and all this stuff. I'm like learning about development. What does a little kid want? He wants to be seen. He'll do anything to be seen. Anything.
Mom, watch. Dad, watch. Mom,
Anything.
Mom,
But
Dad.
so much so that a kid will identify as a negative energy producer, antagonistic, troublesome, worrisome, angry, upset, the quote unquote bad kid, just to get mommy's and daddy's attention. They want to be seen. They'll do anything to be seen. That does not stop. That continues into our adult life. And I'm still doing the same things that I did then to be seen now. Completely unaware that that's what I'm doing. and what pain and trauma and grief and meditation and therapy stuff and self-exploration and medicine journeys and whatever, all this stuff that's been around for thousands and thousands of years, it's all designed to do the same thing. To stop wanting to be seen and start being seen by me.
Yep.
That's where it's always been. But I couldn't do that as a little kid because I wasn't capable of it. And so what the journey really is for us adults is letting go of the need to be seen by others and allowing ourselves to be seen by me, by ourselves. And we can do that, but it requires us to let go. It requires us to become curious, to be learners, and to stop pretending that you know what you're fucking talking about, because you don't.
Right.
You don't. We don't.
It requires us to put ourselves in the place of children again.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's why they're so important. That's why they're so important to observe and learn.
Learning.
Because we're just here on a big experiment. We're just learning stuff. And the best way to learn is to get together, have some fun, make some really good friends, have some hard conversations, connect, go play. Go play, people. Go play, man. Go live your life. Go have fun and play with each other, right? That's what we got to do. But we've forgotten that.
Yeah.
Sit at home, watch freaking Netflix. We freaking drink ourselves into oblivion. We're terrified of the outside world because there's some impending something or other coming, right?
And going off of like being told what to do. You know what to do. You were born with everything you need. Right here can tell you is this good for me or is this not good for me? You know more than anyone else does.
Right.
No one else can tell you, oh, that's bad for you. Don't do that. Right. Yeah, there's a sense of that for sure. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you know what's best for you. And it's very individualized. Like even what's best for me is not best for you.
Right. 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 So as we try to sort of kind of wrap this thing up, we've got some really great takeaways. But I definitely, before we start wrapping up, I want you to be able to talk about what you're up to now, plug your latest endeavor into the world of creativity and art and tattooing and all that stuff. I would love for you to plug that as well, because listeners out there, like if you want to get some good work done, this is your man. I've had work done by Maui, and his stuff it's next level. But anyways, tell us, what are you up to these days?
Can I cover just a couple more?
Yes.
You go wherever you need to go.
Ensure to find a good support group, right?
Yes.
Creating those connections and relationships with people, getting through this is on getting through and finding your way, but also accepting the darkness, accepting the sad, and accepting the hurt, accepting that it's going to be part of you. And you have to learn how to live with that. It's not going to go away, but you have to accept it, because there has to be that balance, right? It can be no good with the bad.
Without the bad. So when you mean accept it, do you mean as in you still go through the process of feeling these things, and so you allow yourself to feel it and you allow yourself to go through that pain, cry it out, whatever it is that you need to do?
I prioritize time. I put time aside to do that. Yeah,
I love that.
To
you don't shove it down.
No.
Yeah.
And most of the time they're holidays. I'm already feeling it. My baby now, Ezekiel, he deserves to have a good, happy holiday, and he can spend it with his mom. But those are my days with Kai and with my pain and with that. But you need to ensure that you're putting that time aside. Otherwise, it's just going to come out in your everyday life. So cry when you need to cry, hurt when you need to hurt, accepting that darkness as part of you. It's part of everyone. And that's what makes us so beautiful, right?
Yes. Definitely.
And then finding something to believe in. You'll lose that sense of belief and hope. And so you need to find something to believe in, whatever that is. If you want to embrace your religion or embrace It can be a phrase you read that sticks with you. If it can be working out, it can be anything, but find something to believe in because you have to have some sort of hope. You know, and that's what's going to carry you.
And go ahead.
I was saying, what is that for you?
Being a good father again is huge with Ezekiel and Caden. And doing what I can to help ease other people's suffering. I want people to know that they're not alone, and I would talk with anyone at any time if they ever wanted to contact me, if they were suffering, that I'm here and we're all here. You just have to find the right people. You know, I want to be a conduit to that, to just helping people get through their hard times. It's hard for all of us, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Help share that load.
Yeah. That's our we. That's our we's greater than me.
It is. The we is greater than me.
Yeah, we talk about that on the podcast all the time. We over me, we is greater than me.
You can't suffer alone. You're right. You can't do that alone.
Well, the we matters a lot. We matter. And included in we is me. And if it's all about me all the time, I miss out on all this cool us, we stuff. Humanity, like my family is part of the we. You are part of the we. Our friends group, right? And if I'm willing to suffer for the we, it's going to create all this beauty and meaning and purpose and hope and find believe in something. Well, my belief is in us. And as crazy as that sounds, given what I said earlier, that there's some evil, shitty people out there, I believe in humanity. Yeah. I believe that humanity is inherently good, and that deep down, the vast, vast majority of people want to be good and want to help and want to love and want to create more love. It's really hard, given the current set of circumstances, given all of these modern fluffy amenities that make things so easy. So now it's really uncomfortable to get uncomfortable, and choosing to get uncomfortable daily and force yourself into, daily habits of grief, experiential grief stuff like you're talking about, or the cold, love the cold, working out, eating healthy, all these things, those daily habits of forcing myself into discomfort. If I'm doing that for us, for humanity, it's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to do. So I love that for you. The big part of the belief is that we can do this.
Human connection, connecting with people.
Yeah. And that you want to help other people through their suffering. Like there's other people who go through stuff and they suffer, and then they're like, oh, I'm glad I'm done with that. Move on. Right. And never talk about it again. Right. But here you are going through the worst thing you ever went through, and all you want to do is help other people. Like that doesn't tell you who Maui is, and I don't know what does.
It's such a terrible place to be. I don't want other people to.
You want them to be alone. Yeah.
Yeah. So
beautiful.
I do tattoos now, anyways.
Yeah.
I'm a tattoo artist now. Hawaiian Havoc Tattoo on Instagram, TikTok. DM me if you need any work.
No, for real though.
We'll tag you in all the socials and stuff. And yeah, definitely.
Because that helped you through your process too, right?
Art. I transitioned through to something that gave me fulfillment and also gives me that connection with people. Being able to connect one-on-one with someone for hours is amazing, because after 2 hours in, a lot of people's walls drop. Their ego disappears, and they open up and they start sharing who they are, because being in pain for that long, physical pain, drops your restraints.
Heck yeah.
And that's when I get that true connection with people, is when their walls drop.
There you have it. Life coach plus tattoo artist. Boom. Yeah. I love it. I think that's so awesome.
I got you.
I need someone like that, because when I go get a tattoo, I'm a big wuss.
So am I. I don't like it. I don't like
it's
the pain.
hard, man. It freaking sucks.
Yeah. So how do people get a hold of you? Like what's your
You can DM
follow?
me.
Yeah. What's it
on
called?
Instagram. Is it Hawaiian Havoc Tattoo?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's the best way to get a hold of me. Is just DM me on Instagram. But my page is on Facebook and TikTok as well.
And then if people want to reach out to you, they can just reach out that way too, with their own suffering and need someone else to have someone to talk to. They can reach out through you that way too.
Absolutely. Yep. I would be glad to talk. Or come in for tattoo therapy.
I love it. I think that's awesome.
It's my favorite therapy.
Yeah.
One of.
It is your favorite therapy.
Oh, I love tattoo therapy. There's nothing like it, man.
Yeah.
I got to get and do some work, dude.
I know, man. We need some ducks tattooed.
Let's
yes,
go.
we do.
Yeah,
It's going to happen.
That's happening.
It is.
Don't you worry.
The end of summer. It's happening.
That will happen very, very soon. I
We
love
have
it.
some plans, everybody.
There
Yes,
you
we
go.
do.
Yeah, we have some
There'll be a reveal.
There'll be a reveal. You can show them on your Instagram.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming, man.
Oh,
This
you're
was
welcome, man.
really, really just absolutely beautiful. And I thank you for spending time and for being my friend. And
Thank you for having me.
man.
Yeah. Thanks for getting vulnerable and sharing your story. And you're just the best. I just love you, Maui.
I love you guys too.
Love you too, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.